Alright people, so I'm here with another investigation of the 9/11 events, and today we aren't going to look at anything that involves 9/11. Instead, I'm going to look at just past false flags and lies that have gotten the U.S. into wars. So I got a shitload of articles to cover here. I mean, a lot of articles and a lot of events and lies to cover here. So the first one we're going to look at is in 1898, the USS Maine exploded in, I believe it was Havana, Cuba. And first one I'm going to read here is from pbs.org. Um, and it just talks about the USS Maine exploding. So I will start off here in the third paragraph, or actually the second paragraph. The sinking of the Maine, which has been in Havana since February 15th, 1898, on an official observation visit, was a climax in pre-war tension between the United States and Spain. The American press headlines proclaimed Spanish treachery, treachery, I don't know what that word is, and destruction of the warship Maine was a work of an enemy. William Randolph Hearst in his New York Journal offered $50,000 award for the detection of the perpetrator of the Maine outrage. Many Americans assumed the Spanish were responsible for the Maine's destruction. So this basically, the first paragraph says, yeah, the press is blaming Spain and whatever. And many Americans thought that Spain was responsible. On March 28th, 1898, the U.S. Naval Corps of Inquiry found that the Maine was destroyed by a submerged mine. Although blame was never formally placed on the Spanish, implication was clear. While historians will never know exactly what happened the night the Maine went down, it is clear the United States, it is clear that the incident was a significant force that propelled the United States into the Spanish-American War. So we didn't know what happened, but we did blame Spain, and we did go to war with Spain. Here's another one. This one is from history.navy.mil. I'm just gonna read the whole thing. It's pretty short. USS Maine, a second-class battleship built between 1888 and 1895, was sent to Havana in January 1898 to protect American interests during the long-standing revolt of the Cubans against the Spanish government. In the evening of February 15, 1898, Maine sank when her forward gunpowder magazines exploded. Nearly three-quarters of the battleship crew died as a result. While the cause of this tragedy is still unsettled, contemporary American popular opinion blames Spain, and war followed within a few months. Maine's wreck was raised in 1912 to clear the harbor and to facilitate an investigation into the cause of her sinking. Her remains were subsequently scuttled in deep waters north of Havana. So basically, the Maine, it exploded. Nobody knew what happened, and still to this day, nobody really, I don't think, knows what happened. But I remember learning about, back then, Americans were hungry for war. They wanted more land. I remember learning the popular term was America's destiny or something like that. They wanted more land, and when this happened, everybody was quick to blame Spain. Although nobody knows even to this day what really happened. And it's just, again, just lies. Even back in the 1800s, even back in 1898, to start wars. Next one we're going to look at is the Lusitania here, the blowing up of the Lusitania, which was a factor in the U.S. Joining World War I. So in this one is NPR.org, titled "New Clues in Lusitania's Sinking." And it basically talks about people who dove down there and investigated the Lusitania in the bottom of the ocean. Okay, so I'm going to start off. This is towards the end of the article, but as McGarry and Andrews descend down the shot line, a small submersible robot, or ROV, which stands for remotely operated vehicle, follows them down to the wreck. Minutes later, Andrews is seen on a TV monitor in the wheelhouse scooping something up in his gloved hand, a small catch of metal. His masked face is beaming in the astringent light. In his hands lie pieces of history, 7 gleaming rounds of .303 ammunition, probably made by the Remington and American, intended for the British Army. Ammunition that for decades British and American officials said didn't exist. Yet all around Andrews are mountains of jumbled rifle cartridges that glint like pirate's treasure in robots' light. So basically saying, there was ammunition on the Lusitania, which the Germany fired a torpedo on it and sunk it. But they're saying, divers dove down and found ammunition on it, which we said when the Lusitania first sunk, they portrayed it as, Germany just shot a passenger ship, which is true. It was a passenger, like a cruise ship, but it did have ammunition on it, according to divers. And this one is from the Daily Mail, titled "Secret of the Lusitania: Arms Find Challenges. Allied claims it was solely a passenger ship." I'm going to read just one sentence here from the first page. It says, Americans were even told falsely that German children were given a day off of school to celebrate the sinking of the Lusitania. So, just more lies to try to, influence Americans to, join the war. It says here, the diving team estimates that around 4 million rounds of U.S. manufactured Remington .303 bullets line the Lusitania's hold at a depth of 300 feet. 4 million, that's a shitload of bullets, And it goes on to say here, Hampton, I think that's his name. I stapled the page really close, so I cut off like a few of the words. But Hampton Size, a writer with Men's Vogue in the U.S., witnessed the diver's discovery. He said they are bullets that were expressly manufactured to kill Germans in World War I. Bullets that British officials in Whitehall and American officials in Washington have long denied were aboard the Lusitania. The discovery may help explain why the 787-foot Lusitania sank within 18 minutes of a single German torpedo slamming into its hull. Some of the 764 survivors reported a second explosion, which might have been munitions going off. Greg Bemis, an American businessman who owns the rights to the wreck and is funding its exploration, said, "Those 4 million rounds of .303 were not just some private hunter's stash. Now that we've found it, the British can't deny anymore that there was ammunition on board. That raises the question of what else was on board. There were literally tons and tons of stuff stored in unrefrigerated cargo holds. There were dubiously marked cheese, butter, and oysters. I've always felt that there was some significant high explosives in the holds, shells, powder, gun cotton, that were set off by the torpedo and the inflow of water. That's what sank the ship." So again, they're admitting, there's not admitting, but they've discovered that there was bullets on board, and even the divers, expressing, his thoughts that there was more than just some ammunition on board. So more lies from the government here, just saying, they just blew up a passenger ship, when really, there was ammunition and war supplies on board. Next one we're going to look at here is Pearl Harbor, which, in my opinion, after researching it probably a false flag, or not a false flag, but I don't know if you would call it a false flag, but I think FDR let it happen. First one we're going to look at here is the McClellan memo, which is a declassified memo. So, it's a 6-page memo, but I only printed out one of the pages here. So I'm going to start off here. It is not believed that in the present state of political opinion that the United States government is capable of declaring war against Japan without more ados, and it is barely possible that vigorous action in our part might lead the Japanese to modify their attitude. Therefore, the following course of action is suggested. So, it's basically saying here that, this is how I take it, that public opinion is against the war, which it was. Many people were feeling that isolationist belief that the U.S. should not go into war with Japan or Germany or join World War II, fearing another war like World War I. And basically they're saying here, the following. I'm not going to read all the actions. I'm just going to go down to the another part of the memo here, number 10. This is a big one too, and it says, if by these means Japan could be led to commit an overt act of war, so much the better. At all events, we must be fully prepared to accept the threat of war. So it's basically saying, if we do all this shit here, Japan could be led to commit an act of war, which could, get us involved in the war. And that act of war, of course, was Pearl Harbor. All right, and then we're gonna go to this article here from the Telegraph, titled "Pearl Harbor Memo Shows U.S. Warned of Japanese Attacks." We'll start off here. The information contained in a declassified memo from the Office of Naval Intelligence adds to proof that Washington dismissed red flags signaling the match bloodshed was looming and war was imminent. In anticipation of possible open conflict with this country, Japan is vigorously utilizing every available agency to secure military, naval, and commercial information, paying particular attention to the West Coast, the Panama Canal, and the territory of Hawaii. That was and then it goes on to say, dated December 4th, 1941, marked as confidential and entitled Japanese Intelligence and Propaganda in the United States. It flagged up Japan's surveillance of Hawaii under a section headlined Methods of Operation and Points of Attack. So December 4th, 1941, a memo came out warning that Japan was interested in, the territory of Hawaii, and, and it basically, it warns FDR that Japan, really wanted to attack Hawaii, was interested in Hawaii. The sub-headline reads here: on the 70th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, the attack that propelled America into the Second World War, a declassified memo shows that the Japanese surprise attack was expected. So, this is the stuff you will not learn in school, though. This is the stuff that you gotta do your own independent research to figure out. You will not learn this in school, because it's too controversial, probably, And it's basically saying here, they knew that Japan was interested in attacking Pearl Harbor, or interested in Pearl Harbor and other areas too. Next one we're going to look at is the truth or Gulf of Tonkin here. First article is from the New York Times here, titled "Records Show Doubts of '64 Vietnam Crisis." And it basically, there's congressmen here who are just expressing their doubts of Tonkin. If this country has been misled, if this Congress has been misled by pretext into a war in which thousands of young men have died and many more thousands have been crippled for life, and out of which their country has lost prestige, moral position in the world, the consequences are very great, said Senator Al Gore, Sr. of Tennessee, the father of future Vice President, said in March '68 in a closed session of Foreign Relations. Still, the transcripts show the outrage the senators were expressing behind closed doors. In a democracy, you cannot expect the people whose sons are being killed and who will be killed to exercise their judgment if the truth is concealed from them, Senator Frank Church, Democrat of Ohio, said in an executive session in February 1968. But the senators also worried that releasing a committee staff investigation that raised doubts about the Tonkin incident would only inflame the country more. Senator Mike Mansfield, Democrat of Ohio, put it. You will give people who are not interested in facts a chance to exploit them and to magnify them out of all proportions. So there's senators really, expressing their thoughts and saying, yeah, if there is, if the country has been misled, if there is question to Tonkin and the legitimacy of it, people are going to question it. Then you get one senator, this Mike Mansfield guy, saying by exposing Tonkin, you will make people who aren't interested in facts interested in them, and it will inflame the country more. So he's worrying about public opinion of the Vietnam crisis. Robert J. Hancock, a retired NSA historian, said Wednesday in an interview that there were doubts, but nobody wanted to follow up on the doubts, perhaps because they felt they've gone too far down the road. Mr. Hancock concluded in 2001 that NSA officers had deliberately falsified intercepted communications in the incident to make it look like the attack on August 4th, 1964 had occurred. Although he said they acted out of political motives but to cover up earlier errors. Many historians say that President Johnson might have found reason to escalate military action against North Vietnam without the Tonkin Gulf crisis, and that he apparently had his own doubts. Historians note that a few days after the supposed attacks, he told George W. Ball, the Undersecretary of State, "Hell, those dumb, stupid sailors were just shooting at flying fish." I will continue elaborating, all these articles in a separate video. So tune in to part 2. All right, people.